episode of the Psych Sessions podcast is sponsored by Pearson Revel, which I think is a game changer for students and teachers. I started using Revel a few years ago, and I can't imagine going back to what I was doing before. Revel helps me feel more responsible as an educator, knowing that my students are receiving evidence-based learning experiences, like retrieval practice. The single best thing about it for me is that it gets students to read. Do you know how long it's been since I've said to a colleague, my students just won't read the book? Yeah, Revel helped me solve that problem. And with that out of the way, I have all kinds of freedom to design the course I want. Now, I assign readings from the text with a click of a button that is delivered to my students as a tracked assignment according to whatever date I schedule. Revel is fully digital and highly engaging. It also has a mobile app that allows students to read, listen, or practice on any device. And students truly like it. So do yourself a favor, check out Revel. Psych Sessions listeners can try Revel out for one term at no cost to your students. For more information, please email revel@pearson.com or visit go.pearson.com/psych sessions.
Hello, and welcome to Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. I'm Eric Landrum, along with Garth Neufeld, your podcast hosts. As the name implies, we center on conversations about teaching, but we often veer into other interesting topics, which is the end stuff. This is episode 101, where Garth had the opportunity to interview Trevor Packer from the College Board in New York, New York. Before you hear the interview, please allow me to share some listening tips and some of my favorite moments. Now, this is a really interesting and intriguing interview that Garth had with Trevor not that long ago. It is a blend of some of Trevor's background and origin story and what led him through his undergraduate time at BYU to the College Board, but it really is a deep dive into the College Board, the AP Psychology exam, as well as the AP reading. And so if you really wanted to understand more about the whole AP program, more about the origin story of AP Psychology and what it's meant to do and what it achieves, this is really a great way to get that information. And what I found really refreshing, I've not met Trevor before in person, but I've got to tell you, after listening to this podcast, I really would like to, because I think he is an honest and genuine advocate for the teaching of introductory psychology amongst all the other subjects he's in charge of in his role at the College Board. He talked about the inception of the AP program and his work there since he's been there at 2003. Really, when they talk, he's going to talk about, I don't want to take it away, I don't want to spoil it, but he's going to talk about the original purpose of advanced placement, and the wording there is purposeful and important. And really, the secondary benefit is the getting college credit for things done in high school. That's really not the primary original origin story benefit. And I'm going to let Trevor and Garth talk about it in the conversation, because I thought that was really fascinating. I did enjoy hearing Trevor talk about how his own AP history experience in high school and how that almost didn't happen really did go on to influence maybe not so much his career at AP and College Board, but it did go on to influence his interest in college. And again, as they talked about during the interview, I think sometimes we underestimate what we might think are little experiences, but turn out to be big experiences. I do think it's an interesting perspective that Trevor offers that I think we realize sometimes, but we don't articulate out loud, that something like the AP exam, this external test or force, can be this thing that both AP psychology teachers at the high school level and students can galvanize together and almost fight toward or fight against. And so It's not the teachers that are making the test and scoring the test, the high school teachers who are teaching. It's the College Board. And so it's almost like teacher and student can, come together and study together and learn together to get ready for this exam waiting for them at the end of the year. The growth has been phenomenal, and Trevor shared some of the numbers from the last 2020 administration. AP Psychology is now in the top 5 in the world in terms of the College Board testing. It's the 5th largest. Just over 300,000 students took the AP exam, and it's taught at over 9,000 schools in the world. And so it's really quite impressive. Overall, the AP program, not just AP Psych, but overall, 5 million students took AP exams in 2020. Garth and Trevor do take a deep dive into what the pandemic did to 2020 testing and the challenges, the technology challenges. And I'm just going to mention these 2 companies that actually played a hand in, and the networking and computer models were influential: Amazon and Netflix. And so it'll be fun to listen for you to listen to that towards the end of this recording. Also, they end their conversation talking about and speculating about what 2021 might look like. And quite honestly, boy, that's what we're all thinking about, right? What might 2021 look like for teaching and learning, whether it's going to be face-to-face or hybrid, or what role technology will play. And so I think you're in for a real treat, especially if you care about introductory psychology or the role of College Board. It does affect what we do at the college level. It's really interesting to understand really the philosophy of how this evolved and what it does now in the current higher education landscape. So please enjoy.
The Psych Sessions podcast is brought to you by STP. That's the Society for the Teaching of Psychology, APA Division II. These are our people, folks. If you are not a member of STP, please join for only $25 a year. It's a great deal. Eric and I want you to join. Do it. Go to teachpsych.org. A couple things from STP this week. Visit teachpsych.org for the following: links to recent ebooks, the most recent on high-impact educational practices. 2, a link to the schedule for the virtual annual conference on teaching, October 4th through 10th, 2020. All STP members receive free registration. And 3, a link to the STP Executive Committee's statement on addressing systemic racism and inequality in STP. Go to teachpsych.org for this and so much more. I am here in my living room chatting with Trevor Packer from College Board. Trevor, first of all, welcome to the interview and thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. And where are you located?
So I grew up in Utah, but I've lived in New York City since 1996. I came here for graduate school, and I still live here. I live in downtown New York City. I can see the World Trade Center from my apartment and the Brooklyn Bridge. So for people who know New York City, right at the very southern tip of Manhattan.
Wow, interesting. So how's the weather in New York today?
It is hot. It is warm and summer, like a typical July day. Cloudy with a little bit of sun.
Well, I'm gonna guess this is probably gonna come out in a month, but we're smack dab in the middle of July right now, and New York, I mean, our whole country is really still adjusting to this pandemic. Were you in New York when it really hit you, your city?
I was in London the day the national emergency was declared, and so I hopped on a plane and came home early, and sort of went through the endless queues of returning Americans at the New York City airports, but have been in New York City, of course, ever since.
Yeah, what was that process like? First of all, what was it like to hop on an international flight with all of this realization going on?
So at the same time, I guess my mind was in a place, right? And as I was at Heathrow, and at Heathrow, I was having conference calls with colleagues back at the College Board because that same day we had been scheduled to ship out millions of boxes of AP tests for the year. These shrink wrapped paper exams to 18,000 schools around the world. And we're realizing that's not going to happen this year. Are we just going to cancel AP testing this year? What are we going to do? So my flight, I remember boarding the plane with my in the middle of this conference call, trying to manage my luggage and wipe down the seat with wipes, while still trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do about these shipments that are scheduled to go out tomorrow? Which, of course, we decided not to ship out, and began
And
immediately working on a backup plan.
those were gonna come out of Heathrow?
No, sorry. I had been in.
Oh.
I was in Heathrow, but I was the boxes were at our warehouses in New Jersey.
Oh, I
So
see.
I was
You're
speaking
dealing.
across the Atlantic with colleagues back in New York City about what are we going to do? What's our
Oh my
what should we
goodness.
make of this mess? Hardly the biggest crisis in the world this spring, but something that was very much on my mind as I was trying to negotiate boarding lines at Heathrow that afternoon.
Yeah, so it all kind of hit at once. Do you remember? Just because I find this fascinating, it really has nothing to do with your job, but do you remember thinking that, like, understanding what this pandemic was at that moment when you were getting on that flight, or?
No, certainly had no sense of scale, length of impact, duration. Only knew that it was unlikely that schools would be open in May, and that was as far as I felt confident making decisions about right then.
Right. So you were trying to get back to your family, I guess, and to make these kind of these job decisions as well. And coming back into the country, was that a pretty much they were scanning you for fever and that was it?
They That's right, because I'd been in countries that the United States had then put on a list for quarantining when you come back into the U.S. They did do temperature checks. It's a little bit odd to have someone pull what looks like a gun and point it at your head while you're approaching the border in the airport. But my temperature was fine, and they just said, we advise you to quarantine for the next 14 days. But that was it. It was a long, long line. But otherwise, no, that's not entirely atypical at an airport.
Yeah. Wow. And so you get home to your residence in New York City, and then this is when New York City gets hit very badly, right?
That's
At
right.
that point in time.
That's exactly right. So New York City shut down. It was the quietest I've ever heard it, except for sirens. And then about this sort of joyous moment every evening at 7 p.m. where neighbors would sort of open their windows and bang pots and pans as some sort of connection with each other, and I think especially celebrate the healthcare workers. I live above a hospital, so there was a lot of enthusiasm from neighboring apartment buildings. People out on their balconies are opening their windows and cheering on the ambulance drivers and others in a sort of moment of daily solidarity, which was beautiful amidst all the horror.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, New York City shuts down, and then you have to essentially what the word everybody's using right now is pivot, but I feel like what you did was probably felt more than a pivot at that point in time. So can we stick a pin in that for a moment? I want to get back there for a second, or in a second, but first of all, I want to, if you don't mind, just introduce you to folks who don't know who you are, and what you do, and what you've been doing for quite a long time, actually. So, Trevor, what's your role at College Board? Let's start there.
Sure. So I've been at the College Board since 1999 officially, and I've been the head of the AP program at the College Board since 2003. So the College Board's a nonprofit organization, most famous, I think, for the SAT, and probably secondarily for the AP program. And so my responsibility is to manage the ongoing development and operations of AP, which involves putting together teacher professional learning programs, developing the curricula, developing the exams, developing support resources for students, writing the exam questions, scoring the exams, and then doing that all over again every year. So it's a sort of annual process of supporting teachers and students in having this opportunity to study at an advanced level in high school.
So where did the AP program or arm of College Board, where did that first come from?
So it came from a group of colleges and high schools in the 1950s, just a small number of them, Ivy League institutions typically, and a few other liberal arts colleges, and really elite private independent boarding schools in many cases that wanted their students to really experience the fullness of university life. And so their goal was, is there some work that we can get done in high school so that when a student goes to a college campus, they can take advantage of study abroad programs and just the wealth of curricula available at a university? There was this sort of sense that if you're doing introductory courses on a college campus, you're missing the chance to do some of the specialization that colleges can provide. Or to double major, or to get a minor. So it was really born from this beautiful idea of let's help students have the richest university experience possible by allowing some of them who are motivated and willing to do some of the very basic introductory courses while still in high school. So that's how it started, and they banded together to do that, and then that group of higher and secondary education institutions came to the College Board a few years later and said, will you all run this for us? You're an organization that has experience in testing and high stakes testing. We were already known for doing the SAT at that point in time. So they asked us to take that on. And to the College Board's credit, and I have nothing to do with this. I didn't come for many decades. I didn't come till many decades later. The College Board agreed to do that at a huge financial loss to the organization. The College Board ran AP. The costs of AP are driven primarily because we have a scoring model where we convene professors and teachers at something called the AP reading, which I know you're very familiar with, to score student essays and work. And that made the AP program very expensive for the College Board to run. And so the organization operated it at a loss for about 35 years and continues in some subjects and in some years to dip into the red, as we certainly have this year. But that's the history. That's the backstory.
Wow. So this, the opportunity that AP exams or the AP program offers students, I'm sure there are many opportunities, but the one that you explained for why the AP program was initially started remains, right? Students are entering into college with some college credit, which gives them some more options when they get to college.
That's exactly right. The name AP stands for Advanced Placement, which means just being placed in a college course that is more advanced than a standard introductory course. And that remains the primary value of AP at universities around the United States and to some extent overseas. A secondary benefit is this college credit one, which is, can the student actually get out of college early by accumulating college credits in high school and reducing the number of credits they need to earn in college to graduate? And that remains so that sort of emerged later than the initial notion of advanced placement. And most of the states have passed laws in recent years that require public universities to give credit and not just that advanced placement benefit. So students that are looking to sort of, who are worried about the cost of college and want to reduce the amount of time it will take to graduate can continue to do so at virtually every public university in the country, and in addition at many private institutions. That said, very selective private universities, think Ivy League universities, are focused almost entirely on just the advanced placement, not on college credit. They are not wanting students to leave Harvard after 3 years, which makes sense. You don't go to Harvard to graduate in 3 years. You go to have the Harvard experience. So there is nuance there that we want to be sure students are understanding as they think about what they want to do with AP.
How old is College Board? How long has this group been around?
So College Board is just over 100 years old, about 110 years old. And the AP program, again, is 65 years old. It began in 1955.
Well, fantastic. So they've been at this for a while, and the mission hasn't changed too much over that time. It sounds like
The mission hasn't changed. I think the vision has changed about equity and access. That originally AP was seen as something only for a small number of private school students. Basically, uh, the like the founding schools of AP were, as I mentioned, elite New England schools. Typically, Choate Rosemary Hall was one of the first AP schools, and I think over the past 2 decades, there's been a real sense that if this sort of learning in high school can increase the students' likelihood of on-time degree completion in college and increase college affordability, we need to make this opportunity available to a much broader range of students. That if in the United States, 68% of high school students matriculate at a college after they graduate from high school. And if that many students are all going to go to college right after high school, there's this notion that let's give them at least one taste of what that sort of rigor is going to be like while they're still in the more familiar environment of a high school classroom, as sort of like college on training wheels before you actually start taking 6 college courses or 5 college courses as a freshman that fall. So people have sort of tried to see it as something that you gradually introduce into high school as a way of evening out the slope between high school and college, rather than leaving high school and then facing a cliff of college rigor in front of you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Not having had that experience, I do recall going from high school into college and having no idea what was waiting for me there, and having kind of some fears about that in particular, and not knowing how I would do. I just had this general sense that it was going to be more difficult.
Right.
But I would have valued that experience, definitely. Let me ask you, how did you first come to College Board? So, and maybe we'll even back up from there. You said you're from Utah originally. What did you major in? At BYU, I think, right?
Yep, I was an undergraduate at BYU. I majored in English. I did take for the audience on this podcast, I took at BYU. I had not taken AP psychology in high school. It wasn't available yet. I graduated from high school in 1988, and AP psychology was first offered in fall 1991. So I took at BYU as one of my introductory courses. I took the Intro Psych course, and I thought I'd wanted to major in psychology before I took that course. And taking that course was really a disheartening experience. And I don't want to generalize from this to any extreme, but I remember sitting in a theater on BYU's campus with hundreds and hundreds of other students, and way far away from me, there was a graduate student at the very front who would sort of lecture to us, and I'd read my book, and I'd go to a testing center and take multiple choice tests, and that was my intro to psych course, and I ended that course no longer wanting to major in psychology. I was so excited to take the course. It sounded so interesting. And by the end, I just had felt I had not developed any connections with mentors or faculty, and I know that I don't want to overgeneralize from this one experience at BYU and this one lecture in this one survey course. But it has influenced. That sort of experience at BYU really did influence my thinking about the role of AP and the role of AP psychology in particular. We've really wanted to utilize the AP psychology program as a way to have that experience, that sort of curriculum taught in a typically smaller environment of a high school classroom, where the student and teachers typically develop a pretty strong bond as they face together the unknown of this AP exam, which the teacher doesn't get to write and the teacher doesn't get to score herself. So the teacher's like this coach for the students. They're all out for this big game, the sort of Super Bowl of the AP psychology exam at the end of the year. And something about that sort of microculture of these sort of the team that an AP teacher creates with his or her students. Our hope and our desire is for that to be so galvanizing and positive for students that they end up wanting to major in psychology, that promotes a desire to take many more psychology classes. And that's exactly what our tracking data shows. We follow AP psychology students into college to see what are they doing with their AP credit. Are they using that AP credit to avoid any for their psychology classes, or what are they doing? Because that's what we don't want to see. And we're thrilled to see that they don't. They end up taking more psychology classes than students who don't receive AP psychology credit. They end up having a much higher likelihood of majoring in psychology than other students. And again, some of that's self-selection. Of course, the kid who would take AP psychology in high school is the sort of kid who would be more likely to major in psychology. But that's what we want. We want to expand the pipeline of students who have a great experience with the discipline like psychology in high school and then choose to major. Now, I won't say that's equally true of all AP subjects. AP psychology ends up being, in our annual surveys, typically about the second most popular of the 38 AP subjects every year. Popular meaning student surveys of their satisfaction, how much they like their AP course. Like, by way of contrast, on the low end of the scale, AP Physics is usually the course each year where we see students least happy, least liking their experience. But AP Psychology, right up at the top, 93% of students saying they loved the class, they were happy to have taken the class, they would recommend it to others. But that's part of what we're trying to accomplish here.
So that data about students going on and taking more psychology courses, do you keep that in-house, or do you publish that anywhere or release it? Is it available publicly?
It is. If that's on our website, we publish. We like it more when other groups do research on AP because that doesn't have the bias of an organization researching its own program. But when others aren't investing in researching on AP, we of course do annual studies because we need to track all of these things, and we do post that information on our website. So we do regular tracking studies of student satisfaction and teacher satisfaction, but then we do these more sophisticated studies where we follow the students into their college experiences, and we look at large-scale data sets from universities around the United States in this case, and look at how students, we match them against college students and look at how they're doing and what they do with their AP credit and with the choices they make about college course taking. And so we publish that. It goes through peer review processes. It's published on our website as a College Board research study.
Okay, so you finish up at BYU. Did you just do an undergraduate degree there? Or
so
did you do graduate degree as well?
So I to back up a little bit there. So I guess my sort of personal narrative is I came from a family that qualified for free and reduced lunch. So I was a low income student, have been getting like a bunch of C's in ninth grade, spent a lot of my time playing video games rather than doing homework. And I was not the sort of kid that a school would normally enroll in AP courses in 10th grade, but my school was small in Utah. There were 24 kids in my high school class. And the school didn't have the option to offer both a regular European history and an AP European history course. So they put all 24 of us, and that meant even Trevor Packer, who had been getting a C in ninth grade history, they put even C grade Trevor Packer in 10th grade AP European history as their sole history option. They could only run one history class. It was such a small school, so they just put us all in AP European history. It was really transformative for me. The teacher was I got lucky. It was the teacher who had a master's degree from Harvard, and he loved snowboarding. So he was willing to take a job at a no-name school in Utah so that he could snowboard a lot. And that meant I had a great 10th grade history teacher. And he got me ready for that AP exam. I remember I hadn't signed up to take the exam because it was $47 or something like that at the time. And I had never asked my parents for a check. They had turned me down so many times when I'd ask for a check for a high school ring or a high school sweater or whatever. Like, why would I ask for a check for a test of all things? So I didn't ask my mother to write me a test for that or a check for that test. But the principal called my mother the night before and said, "Hey, we over-ordered tests. We have an extra AP European history test for tomorrow, and we really think Trevor can get some college credit." My mother had dropped out of college, and she had hated, kind of like my experience in psychology at BYU, she had hated her freshman classes where she just felt lost and unable to connect. So when the principal explained that I'd be able to skip that class in college, those were like magic words for my mom. And so she whipped out that checkbook, and I took that $47. I hit the books that night and did some final study and went to school the next day and took that AP European history test and got a 3 on the test, which was enough to get college credit at BYU. And that was transformative for me. I took other AP classes, and I was able to start BYU as a sophomore. And like most AP students who gain sophomore standing, I didn't leave BYU early. I stayed for the full 4 years because there were so many classes I wanted to take. But I'm so glad I was able to take those classes. I was able to take seminars in Willa Cather and to study abroad in London and have a great college experience because I wasn't spending all my time doing the sort of general electives that BYU requires for graduation. So that was my experience. Then, so I did my master's. I did a bachelor's and master's in English in BYU. I came to New York City to do a PhD in English. And in the summer of while I was working on my PhD, I needed a job. I thought I don't want to go home to Utah for the summer, so I took a job with the College Board. I thought it would just be for that summer, setting up teacher professional development programs, which seemed like a fun and interesting thing to do as a graduate student. And then I worked part-time while I continued to work on my degree. And I just kind of fell in love with the work. So I never finished my PhD, and I stayed with the College Board and just kind of worked my way up.
Wow, that's really interesting. Do you remember how you got word that College Board, or what College Board was, or that they were looking for this for somebody to fill this position?
So I mean, you're probably going to want to edit this right out. The real story there is, so I was living with roommates in grad school, and I had a temp job for the summer working in a law firm, and that seemed fine. And my roommates all wanted to go to Washington, D.C. for the weekend. And they talked to me into going with them. I was like, I can't go to D.C. because I'll miss work on Monday. I'll miss my law firm temp job. They're like, you can get any temp job. This is New York City. It's not hard to get a temp job. So come with us to Washington, D.C. So I went with them to Washington, D.C., which meant I gave up the law firm job. But that single decision, isn't that crazy how a single decision like that can alter your entire life? That single decision, because I gave up that law firm temp job, I came back Monday morning. I called the law firm, the temp agency first thing Monday morning, and the temp agency said, "Oh, well, there's this organization called the College Board that does this thing called AP testing, and they need someone for the summer if you want that." And I had this sort of vague memory of like, "Oh yeah, I took AP courses in high school." So that's
that's fantastic. There's no way that's getting edited out. I promise you. That's such a great story, and I also think it is so strange how things turn out. Little decisions that we make. So thank goodness that your roommates wanted to go to DC and drag you along. Yeah, so you start with College Board, and so maybe can you list a few jobs that you've had at College Board in your time there? Because you said you've been with the AP program since 2003, but you started there in what, 99?
So I was officially hired by the College Board in 1999. That temp experience began in June 1997. That's when I came back from Washington, D.C. was June 1997, my first summer after my first year of grad school here. And so I temped while going to grad school for 2 years, from 1997 to 1999. In 1999, a new head of the AP program was hired in 1999. And I sort of was like I was like, I need to get my dissertation written. I need to end this stuff at the College Board. So I wrote him, I mean, this sounds so Jerry Maguire. So I wrote him this memo, as like, here's what I would worry about if I were you. I'm going back to graduate school. So I wrote him a memo of things that were sort of on my mind. And he marched down to our human resources office. He's like, we've got to hire this guy. Like I want him to help me fix these issues that he's spotted. So they offered me a job. It was $47,000 a year. And that seemed immense to me as a graduate student. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to make $47,000 a year as like working for the AP program. I want that. And they're like, yep, you can continue to work on we'll give you flexibility so you can take time off to continue your coursework. But we'd like you to be a full-time employee. So in 1999, when they offered me that $47,000 job, it was working on AP processes with schools. So the title was Assistant Director of Operations, and my job was to help set up with all the different schools that do AP courses, processes for managing their ordering and how you get the exams shipped to them on time and things like that. So
do you remember, sorry to cut in, but do you remember what any of those recommendations that you had written to him were off the top of your head?
That's a good question. Let me think. So one of the memos was about, I'd done a lot of work with AP internationally. So I'd spent a lot of time working with with international schools on how to train their AP teachers. I mean, one of my first jobs at the College Board, which I loved so much, was setting up a professional development week in Rome for AP teachers in Central Europe and Western Europe. So I think some of the recommendations were about like where you should base professional development centers in Europe to serve more teachers effectively and to reduce the amount of travel that they had to do. And I think we offered at the time this sort of strange AP exam called International English Language, which was kind of like tried to be a competitor to the TOEFL. And I think I recommended some real changes to that. We eventually discontinued that exam. A rare example of the College Board scrapping an AP exam is just not making sense. So it was those sorts of things as far as I can remember.
Okay. Yeah. So then you take this. Well, I guess it wasn't a promotion. It was a full-time job, right? Because you were going from temp to full.
Right. That's right.
Okay. So you take this job with, and you said it was assistant director of operations.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that was my first official job title at the College Board. Besides, after temp, it was assistant director of operations. Yep.
And would you say that that when you sent that message up to your boss at the time, or one of your bosses at the time, were they just too far removed that they weren't understanding how how these operations could be more efficient and serve people better?
That's a great question. No, he was brand new. He had just been hired as a brand new head of the AP program by the College Board. He had just come into the organization. And so I wrote in the memo because he was brand new and because I thought I was leaving. And so I thought it would be helpful to him. Like, oh, since you're brand new here are some things you might want to keep an eye on, or here's some things you might want to consider. So it was just sort of like a handing something off as sort of, I was like a junior employee and I knew he had a lot of things to work on because he was coming in to manage a division of a variety of staff. And I was just this temp. So from my one little narrow area of focus, I sort of wrote him a memo so that he could like have some clear next steps for that stuff I had been working on.
So okay, great. And then so did you hold that position then for 4 years?
So basically that position grew over time. I became director of operations and then senior director. I mean, I received promotions about every year. And then when he left the organization in 2003, he recommended to the then College Board president, Gaston Caperton, that I be made the head of the AP program to replace him. His name was Lee Jones, a great man, a former biology professor. And he was just ready to sort of transition to a different, he was close to retirement and was ready to transition away.
Wow. So go ahead.
I mean, I think Gaston, the president, had real misgivings about me to some degree. We didn't get off to a great start. One of the earliest encounters I had with him before this was he was the former governor of West Virginia, and he had this home in West Virginia. He had made his money from real estate, or from insurance. He was an insurance. He ran a sort of insurance company, I believe. Anyway, he has been the former governor of West Virginia. He invited all the staff down to his home, this beautiful home that had been featured in Architectural Digest overlooking the Susquehanna River. It's spectacular. He invited us all there, and central to this home, there was this gallery where he had this incredible connection of American Indian art and artifacts. And so he has sort of a cocktail hour there for all these employees. And while we're sort of at the buffet line getting our hors d'oeuvres, I see him out of the corner of my eye, the president of the College Board, and he's whispering to someone, and I see him pointing at me, and he whispers to this other fellow, "Who is that guy? I've never seen him before." And the other person says, "Oh, it's just some protege of Lee Jones." Lee Jones, the head of AP at the time. So I knew Gaston had like no idea who I was, but he certainly knew who I was by the end of the night, because fortuitously, or fatefully, maybe I should say, later that evening, I'm standing with my little plate of hors d'oeuvres next to this pedestal that has this ceramic American Indian vase on it. And I know. So, it's coming. So I'm standing there, and Gaston has his back to me. And I like this niece or granddaughter, I don't know who she is. This little girl comes running down the gallery towards him and jumps up into his arms. And her foot kind of swings past him and hits the vase. And it sort of like teeters pirouettes in slow motion, like you'd see in a movie or something, and falls and shatters at my feet. And Gaston turns around and sees me standing next to the pedestal with this shattered art object below me. And he just quickly says, "Oh, don't worry about that." And I said, well, no, no, I did that. And he's like, no, please don't say anything more. Don't worry about that. So I left that sort of, that's like, so he had no idea who I was before the night. By the end of the night, he sees me as this sort of person who clumsily breaks some precious object that
Oh man,
he's collected.
what was that ride home like for you?
Yeah, I know, just like, well, should I look for other jobs at this point? Like, I'm clearly not going to have a career at the College Board at this point. But he and I developed a really close relationship. We held the first press conference that had ever been held for the AP. Like, part of what I've really wanted to do is be really transparent, as you know, with our data and our information. Like, educators are smart, great people by nature. I want them to have access to the same information I have so they can do really interesting stuff with it and think of things that I haven't thought of myself. So we put in place this first press conference to just share, like, here's what we can see about AP data by race, by ethnicity, by gender, by state. We want you to see where there are real gaps in states, which states are closing opportunities for students, which states are opening opportunities, where there are real inequities. And I think that press conference was such a positive experience in terms of he and I working together that we were sort of inseparable from then on. He developed a lot of confidence in sort of my vision for AP and what we would be doing to support teachers and students.
Yeah, so I mean, you've been in this position now for 17 years. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
That's a long time to hold a position. What do you attribute your longevity at College Board to?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know what I'd attribute that to. I personally, I love what AP teachers and students do, and I love their partnership between AP teachers and college faculty. I feel like it's a rare bridge between higher and secondary education. So there's so much that I personally love about the way the notion of an external exam can galvanize teachers and students to sort of conquer together. I love the way teachers use it as sort of, as I mentioned this already in this conversation, I love the way teachers use the exam as sort of a common enemy. So the student no longer feels like, oh, I need to suck up to my teacher so that I can get a good grade, which is a dynamic students often feel is, there's some degree of favoritism in like, does the teacher just like that other student because the teacher thinks that student's a good math student? But in AP, it's like, no, the teacher is not the one who's going to decide your ultimate fate here. It's a bunch of college professors and teachers who you don't know. And so you better listen to that teacher, because when they give you tough feedback, they're doing that to help you. And I think students really sense that in an AP class in ways that can be so powerful for their own growth and their own willingness to accept feedback and to recognize the feedback is designed to help them grow rather than to punish them or to give them a bad grade for the sake of maintaining some curve or something.
Right. Yes. So let's talk your experiences pre-pandemic. So for those 17 years before the pandemic hit, what were the major changes that, or what are the major changes that have occurred with the AP exam over that, better part of 2 decades that you've been in this position?
Yep. So I think that some of the things that concerned me very early on were just the lack of information that teachers received. When I became head of the AP program, teachers didn't receive student scores. They didn't receive any data about their students. We would hear these sort of horror stories about teachers breaking into their own school offices and like steaming open the envelopes that had been sent to the principal with the AP scores in it, because that was the only way they knew what their students were doing. So a very sort of initial move, one of the first things I did was to build out processes to ensure that we could deliver scores, and not just scores, but data about student learning to every AP teacher, so that they would have some real visibility into where students were struggling, what areas of the course might merit additional focus and attention and things like that. In terms of the exams themselves, I felt really concerned initially about the history and the science exams being sort of a mile wide, inch deep. As I looked at those exams, they were sort of full of these multiple choice questions that asked very granular information that I didn't have any indication would really help a student succeed as a history major or as a science major. Questions like, what was the first colony in the United States to require to provide free public schooling? Well, that's not uninteresting. I don't not value that information, but I don't have any evidence that knowing that is going to make you a better history major. And instead, as I looked at the cognitive science around science learning and history learning, what I think I saw and what good college faculty advised me to do was to think that AP should be focused on a set of core skills that were absolutely essential to success in history majors or in science majors, and to restructure the AP exams in that way. So we overhauled many of the AP exam and replaced every multiple choice question on the science and history exams with stimulus based questions where the students actually have to act like a scientist or a historian by combing through some primary sources that we put in front of them, comparing competing pieces of evidence from history or science, looking at scientific models or lab data, and developing a response based on that sort of real world stuff, rather than a bunch of very granular multiple choice questions that I was really concerned were putting pressure on teachers to race through content in a sort of mad dash. So those were sort of, I think, the focus of my first 10 years, sort of greater and better operational services for teachers and school leaders to help them receive good information about what their students were learning, and then overhauling some of the AP exams. Now, AP psychology as an exam, interestingly, has not been overhauled in that way. It's one of the few that haven't, and we're in that regard, we've been advised to wait just a year or two more for the work that is being done by the APA on the future of the intro psych course at colleges. So as you're probably aware, Commission's been meeting on that for a number of years, and our understanding is that we'll be able to act on that very soon.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a part of that work right now. And so that all that will be out. Some of those recommendations are coming out in small ways, but that book will be out in summer 2021. And so
we're
all
so
those
excited. We
I
can't
know.
wait.
We can't believe that we get to align ourselves all together on this for the benefit of students and educators. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. And thanks from us to you, because we know that you guys didn't have to wait either, and you could move forward. So
why would we? Why would we ever want to step away from what you all are recommending? That would be insane. That makes no sense.
Right.
So we want to anchor ourselves. I mean, the AP program should be anchoring itself in what is best in college teaching and learning in that introductory space. And the benefit of being able to build AP psychology off what you all are creating is so exciting to us. It really reduces the amount of effort we've had to do in other AP subjects where there wasn't a disciplinary association coming forward with that coherent of a set of recommendations for the introductory experience.
Right. Well, I know that you all have been structurally changing some things around College Board, and we probably don't have time to get into all of that. But let me just, before we kind of finish off where we started, can you just talk about the amount of growth? I know what psychology growth has looked like in my time at the AP reading, and I know the people who were doing the reading when there was, 2 tables, I think. Right. I think maybe that was Daytona or something like that from the stories I've heard. But and now it's this unbelievably massive process, and maybe can you just talk about growth over time, the time that you've been in your position?
Yeah, I sure can, and I'll talk about it in generally, and then maybe about AP psychology in specific. maybe I'll start with AP psychology in specific. It's an interesting example because it has been one of the fastest growing of all AP subjects. I think the popularity of it, as I described, the likability of the discipline has really contributed to that. The fact that it doesn't require a prerequisite, like, for example, AP calculus or AP biology do, have led to that growth. But AP psychology this year crossed into the top 5. It's the 5th largest of all AP courses. About 300,000 students participated, just over that. This year, it passed up AP Calculus, it passed up AP US Government, it passed up AP Biology, and moved into that fifth position. It's taught by 9,000 schools, and it's an interesting it's different than other AP exams in that my understanding, this is before my time, but in 1991 when it began, my understanding from those who preceded me was that the College Board had to beg and actually force the community to accept free response questions and not have it be an AP exam that was 100% multiple choice. There was a desire from the field, because psychologists understand the psychometric quality and the reliability of good multiple choice questions. Psychologists, after all, are oftentimes experts in cognitive science and in learning, let alone measurement and assessment. That they wanted this to be the only AP exam where there was no free response, just all multiple choice. Even as it has the lowest weighted free response section of any AP exam. The free response section on AP psychology is worth only 33% of the score, 33 1/3%, whereas the multiple choice are 66 2/3%. So usually free response is weighted equally. In some subjects, it's weighted even more than the multiple choice. So it's very distinctive that way in its own thing. AP overall, though, the growth has been dramatic, I think, particularly among underserved groups. When I began as head of the AP program in 2003, 1 in every 10 AP students came from a low-income family. And this year it was 1 in 4 students in AP classrooms were from low-income families. I'm so happy about that change, that in many ways what we would want most in society is to ensure that students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds are getting this sort of opportunity to increase the array of options that they would have for higher education in terms of affordability or optimizing their time on campus. So there have been real demographic shifts. As of recent years, white students are underrepresented in AP classrooms, and Latinx, Latino and Latina students are overrepresented in AP classrooms and among the students who are getting scores of 3 or better. So there have been some real demographic shifts where Asian students and Latinx students are more likely to be in AP courses than in regular courses in the school, and white students and Black students and American Indian students are less likely to be in AP classes than in regular courses. And you might wonder, what's going on with white students? What's that about? A lot of that is due to the rural situation, where many rural schools with majority white populations have fewer AP courses available, or are not offering AP courses compared to suburban and urban schools. So the growth has been significant. When I remember when I was a temp, there was excitement at the College Board because students had taken 1 million exams that year, and last year students had taken more than 5 million exams. So in that sort of 20-year span or so that I've been at the College Board, maybe a quintupling in the number of exams taken by students. But again, I think what we're most excited about is the sort of incomplete journey to ensuring that students of each group are fairly represented in the AP population, and we're still not there. We have much work to do, and we can talk about that at some point if helpful, to ensure that no matter where a student lives, they're having an equal opportunity to prepare for AP and then to succeed once they're in these classes.
Fantastic. So if we could just go for a few more minutes, I know that you probably have lots of meetings. Do you have 5-10 minutes?
Sure do. Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. I want to just go back to spring of this year and the pivot that you had to do and the calls you had to make for the AP exams because of the pandemic. And I want to know, when you got back to New York and it's settling in that those exams are not going to happen. Can you just walk us through what that was like for you and your team, and how you made the decisions that you made?
Yes, I will, and I'll try to be fair about them because there's certainly principal disagreement about the decisions that I made, and I want to just recognize that principal disagreement. So we need the decision was in one way very simple. Do you simply cancel AP testing this year, or do you find a way to meet students where they are, which means test them crazily in their homes? Those seem to me to have been the only two options. I mean, yeah, I'll full stop. so, so there are principled arguments, I think, just to have canceled AP exams this year altogether. And I want to be respectful of those, as I said, and that would involve, in a world struggling with the pandemic, a year without students earning college credit is hardly going to be the largest tragedy the globe or North America faces. So if going ahead and offering AP exams in students' homes would sort of add to the strain and stress of the pandemic, that would be really good reasons not to do that. So to honor those students, we made the decision not to, for any student who is registered for an AP exam, to relieve them of that registration. If you are registered for an AP exam and you do not, it would add stress for you to continue on that path towards test day. There's no cancellation fee. You can cancel your exam. If you've paid your school, you can receive a refund from your school. We, of course, hadn't collected any funds yet. We don't collect funds until after the exams. So we wanted to respect that and make sure that no student felt a sort of harmful pressure. But I was swayed in the decision by a survey we did of students worldwide, and we had a representative sample of respondents, a large number of respondents, and 91% of students in this sample that we surveyed begged us not to cancel the exams. And they wrote 900 pages of comments, and their comments included things like, my high school graduation has been canceled. My athletic competitions have been canceled. My prom have been canceled. My senior trip has been canceled. What I can still do is study and learn, and I can still earn college credit. So don't let this be one more thing that is sort of taken away from me right now. And I found those comments really compelling. So we decided we've got to find a way to meet them where they are and to do this. And the good thing about one of the things I love and one of the things that's kept me at the College Board so long is I've never once been asked by our Board of Trustees to make more money or to increase our revenues or to protect our profits or anything like that. We're a nonprofit. And with the Board of Trustees that are entirely educators, and with me, who's not a business person, but comes from an education background as well, I like having the ability to do what's right from a mission perspective rather than having to focus on what will that do to our finances. So our board did something pretty incredible. They supported us in dipping into our financial reserve that we've built steadily over the past 20 years, which is still not as large as we've been advised to make it to last through a tough time like this, but large enough that we could dip into our reserve and just start building something very rapidly to meet students where they were. And we looked around and we knew, gosh, we don't have models for how you test this many students simultaneously online in homes. Like we looked at China because we thought maybe China has some experience with this. And the Gaokao is a larger exam than AP as more students take it, but they don't administer their exams digitally, synchronously like this. We looked at exams in India and we couldn't find any exams in India that needed to operate at the scale we did. We looked at the GRE, and the GRE, AP English, a single AP subject, would have to test more students in our window than GRE has to test online in a full year. So we just couldn't find, we were like, where's an example for this? But there are examples outside of educational testing. And we went to Amazon, and Amazon was great. I've got to say it. They said, we see this as an event of national importance, this opportunity for students who have been studying all year long to now take an AP exam. We're going to help you with that. So their engineers consulted with us. They enabled us to use their technology, the same technology that Netflix runs on and streams in a gazillion households, and that is used for Black Friday for Amazon's peak traffic, is what we used to deliver these exams in students' homes this year. And it went incredibly well on the Amazon side of things. Like, it operated without a glitch. It went incredibly well, but it didn't go incredibly well.
Unbelievable.
Well, that's like part of the story. It didn't go incredibly well in many students' households. That the Amazon part of this, so there were no College Board servers involved. There's no College Board hardware involved. This was all placed on Amazon, and it ran gorgeously. But there are other parts of this equation that we can't control for, and those are the student's own hardware, the student's own internet connection, local network issues, all of which have to also be working in order for Amazon to receive a digital response back from a student. And so a number of students would get to the point where they would finish writing their exam questions. Can you imagine the trauma? They have finished writing this exam at home, this weird experience, and then they go to click submit and nothing happens. I mean, those poor students, I mean, it's just crushing. And they were very angry, and they blame us for that, and I understand that. It's frustrating because while it certainly isn't our fault when there are local internet issues, and we tried to be very upfront about the fact that we knew there would be such issues that we could not control. We are not the gods of the internet. We don't have the ability to be in every student's home troubleshooting their devices. While that's not our fault, it's certainly our problem. And so we've tried to just move mountains to come up with other ways to help these students. We put in place an email backup where the minute their signal went out, we would, and when they tried to click submit, we would then serve up to them an email address that they could email their exam to us if they were having some sort of other problem. But that was rough. I mean, it was painful for me personally, and I think for many in our organization who'd worked. I mean, we killed ourselves to do this. It was from landing in New York City for the next 3 months. My team and I mean, worked around the clock to make this opportunity available, and we cared so much about doing right by these students and these teachers, and so it was tough for us to feel the anger and the blame of those who were upset about having a bad transmission experience. But we're also really, really gratified that 99.x% of students were able to do this without a hitch, and were able to participate. And I think what I'm most happy about is that somehow that lure of the AP exam in May was used to keep many students on track. There was a profile published yesterday in the Washington Post that made it on the front page. I had no idea this was coming, where this reporter followed an AP World History teacher in a low-income school and 4 of his students from the day that school closed through the AP test day, and just followed like what they were experiencing as they tried to figure out how to still learn college-level material after being disrupted in this way. And without the promise of an AP exam still ahead of people, I really worry about the amount of learning that would have been even more severely disrupted. That somehow that one little aspect of normalcy, as abnormal as it is to take an AP exam in your home for this 1 year, that vestige of normalcy, my sense is that it was galvanizing for many teachers and students and helped them keep focused in a time when so much else was in disarray and sort of was sort of spinning wildly.
Wow. Yeah, that was, I mean, everybody was making it up as they go. Like in our classrooms, in our families, and of course, College Board was getting together and trying to come up with a solution that would work for the most students. And so I appreciate that. That you guys did that, and that it did work for so many students. And, I do follow you on Twitter, and I know that you are absolutely transparent, and then you also, you do take a lot of negative feedback from time to time and deal with it so graciously. And so I hope for those who this process didn't work for, I do hope that they understand that that College Board is trying to do everything it can, or has tried to do everything it can to make that experience better for students. Did I miss anything in kind of my assessment of that?
No, I think that's a great summary. I really agree with all of that.
Well, What does the just two last questions. One is, what is the future of the AP reading?
I love the AP reading so much. I cannot. Well, my colleagues and I, my staff and I missed it so much this year. So we love the AP reading. So we love the face-to-face AP reading in particular. We think that there's something about bringing people together for a week that creates a sort of intensity of exchange, professional and personal, that can get lost in a digital world so easily, or just not. It's just not the same in a digital world. So we as an organization, and this goes from the very top of the organization, the CEO of the organization, David Coleman, is equally committed to this as I am. We will always maintain a face-to-face AP reading. We value that. We will also, we were midway through this year. One of the reasons we were able to pivot so quickly was that we had already transitioned to half online scoring for 19 of the 38 AP subjects. And what that means is that half of the exams were being scored by readers at home, which is the model we most like, because in the same way that I love the face-to-face model and we won't get rid of it, I love an at-home model for teachers who are unable to travel somewhere to score AP exams, for single parents who cannot leave their children behind but still want to be part of that scoring community. And the satisfaction levels from the people who score at home are 1 percentage point higher than the satisfaction levels of the people who score at the face-to-face reading. So it's not as if they're unhappy with their experience. The people who like to score at home are a self-selected population who like to score at home and really like to score at home. And the people who self-select to go to an AP reading are a group of people who really like being at an AP reading. And I wonder how it'd be interesting psychologically, I would guess, to sort of understand to what degree that sort of falls along introvert extrovert lines. I would guess there's something there, but do not know that. So we will continue to operate both models. This simply accelerated that. We had to very rapidly this year invest a massive amount of money to build out the online capability for the 19 subjects that didn't have it yet. So that's what one of our teams, that's kind of what they focused on from the moment I got back from London through June, was just building out that online scoring capacity for all the subjects that didn't yet have it. And the 19 subjects that already had it, we were just simply able to use what they already have and do it for all of the exams rather than half the exams.
Wow. Well, I'll look forward to, I think many of us are looking forward to being in person again someday at the AP reading. That is so meaningful to so many of us. And
I agree.
my last question is, what will people give me crap for not asking you in the psych AP world? Is there anything that people real like, a question that comes up for you all the time from high school teachers or AP readers that maybe you could quickly comment on, or is there anything else?
I wonder if they would ask you, I mean, right now they would ask you like, hey, what's going to happen with next year's exam? Like, what is the College Board planning for next year's exam? Are they going to do the same thing again next year? Now, that might be old news by the time this podcast airs, but that's something that I think we're hearing a lot about. Like, people just want to know immediately, like, what's going down, what's happening.
And do we have an answer?
Our and what we want, it may be different than what we have to do, but what we want is to be back in schools administering the traditional exam in the school, because in-school testing is just better for everyone. It eliminates that possibility that a student's going to have a local technical issue, which we just simply can't solve for that. It results in better turnout from low-income students. I mean, one of the challenges of at-home testing is that while there was really large turnout this year, we were surprised. I thought that we would see maybe 60% of the students end up showing up for testing, but it was more like 90% of the students who had been registered showed up to test. But the 10% who didn't show up to test were disproportionately low-income students. So for the first time in my career here at the College Board this year, we saw a step back, a decline in the proportion of AP students who come from low-income families, and that's a tragedy. I don't want that, and I don't. So one of the best things we can do to regain participation among low-income students is to be back in schools where the students are already able, where they're shepherded through the process and are showing up and don't have these sort of dependencies. When we look at data this year on the experience of testing at home, it's dramatic to see the number of interruptions that low-income students report having had while testing, from family members, from neighbors, from their own technology disruptions, compared to more affluent students. Like, it's just not. And in-school testing is more fair to everyone because we can control the testing environment much more powerfully through the capabilities the school puts in place. So we want to be back in schools, and that's what we're planning to do. And if schools still need to social distance next spring, we will allow them to divide their students up into multiple groups so that they can test them on different days to keep them to maintain larger distances between students, if that's helpful to them. All that said, if there is if the state of the emergency is such that schools can't open to test their students on site, we will need to provide a digital at-home contingency. That digital at-home contingency will need to be a full exam. It will need to be the multiple choice section. It will need to be free response. We can't have another year. Colleges were very patient this year, and they understood the situation, and they are willing to give credit for this streamlined 45-minute exam this year. But with a full year to prepare, there's no excuse for us not to deliver a full-length exam digitally at home. That said, if students struggled with a 45-minute digital exam at home, I'm very concerned that they will struggle even more with a 3-hour digital exam at home. So we're really hoping and wanting, like the rest of the world, for it to be safe then for schools to be open for testing. But if not, there will be a digital backup.
Well, Trevor, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk to us about everything College Board and your background and how College Board is adjusting in this situation that we find ourselves in. I appreciate your transparency. I do appreciate the way you communicate so openly and publicly on Twitter, and how College Board really communicates openly as well, and posts all their research. And it's just a theme that has run through this conversation. Also, from my perspective, as a table leader, somebody who's been part of the AP reading for a long time, relatively few years anyway, that from my perspective and from a reader's perspective, I think that things went very, very well this year, even though you could definitely point to some things that could have been better, but everybody was just doing their best. And so everything that you've talked about today, and I really hear this as a student-centered organization, a student-focused organization that is trying to do its best to serve all students and to serve education well. I just want to thank you for taking the time today, but also for the work that you're doing, because I think it is so important for so many students and teachers and education. So anyway, thank you for being with me today and taking the time.
Oh, you're so welcome. And that's just so generous of you. I think my colleagues and I just feel so honored to be able to work with AP teachers and college faculty and AP students. I mean, what an incredible community to serve, and we're grateful for the opportunity.
All right. Well, I wish you and your family and all of College Board health as we work our way through this pandemic. And again, thanks for taking the time. And hopefully I will see you at the reading sometime soon.
I can't wait. Take care.